Hello, everybody. Welcome to the unit test, theory and practice. So the idea with this little training is share a little more information regarding with the unit test. Um, I want to start it with a simple question. So question is how to know whether a product or service meets specific requirements. So if we have these things as expected, when we have this a reality, so the idea or the answer is testing all the time. Yeah, and more testing. So somebody asked to Edison, the inventor of the light bulb, that's why he fails a lot of times trying to embed that. He answered, I have not failed. I just found 10,000 ways that won't work. So the idea is try always to do and test again and again and again. So let me introduce myself. My name is Julio Robles. I'm solution architect, mainly in net technologies. I'm DevOps champions over Azure, QA engineer, support engineer, senior developer, technical lead, IT consultant for the government here in my country, and university professor with different topics. I have more than 30 years experience, mostly on Microsoft and net technologies. So the idea with this course is see two special topics things. The first thing is the theory. We want to discuss what is quality assurance, what is chiefless testing, testing parameter, unit testing, component testing, integration testing over there, driver development, TDD and BDD. And the other part is the practice. We're gonna see unit tests with net and NUnit, standards and best practice, success and fails, the AAA pattern, flows, main and secondaries, mockups, builder pattern, model pattern, mappers, and compares. The idea with this course is that you get it most of the typical or common knowledge that you can get to do or start with the unit testing. Who is address this course? First of all, for software developers. Second, QA tester. And third, manual QA. So the idea is that if you want to automate something, you can do it. And technical leads. More, everybody that wants to join us and learn and help us with automation is welcome in here. What are the requirements for this? Mainly object-oriented programming, some programming language, net basic knowledge, and Git basic commands. Which tools do you need? Visual Studio IDE, Git tool, mainly the Git extensions or GitHub desktop. Okay, just let's start it. Some question until here? No?
No.
Great.
No questions.
All is clear.
Okay, perfect. So give me a moment, please. Somebody's knocking the door. I have to, we'll be back in a minute. Sorry guys for that. Okay, I apologize for that. Will we continue then? So the first part is the theory. So the idea with the theory is we want to see mainly the principal topics here. And the first one is what is the quality assurance? So the quality assurance could be defined as a systematic approach that determines if a product meets specific requirements and specifications. Is the software testing procedure to ensure the quality of software of products or service provided for the customers. Quality assurance focus on improving the software development process and making efficient and effective as per quality standard defined for software products. Quality assurance is popularly known as QA testing. So everybody knows what is quality assurance here, right? What is the meaning? Okay. Okay, perfect. So talking about what is the quality assurance benefits, we can see that the first one is improving production efficiency. So the production efficiency happens when every element in production is in good condition. That means that's high quality materials and has not defects, working properly, and is efficient, and has an efficient production methods. With that means that we consume fewer resources and not spend a long time to get the goal. And the second one is creating cost efficiency. So in this, as the name said, is more related with the QA prevent the quality issues from the beginning, preventing failures, return repairs, and other costs related with the problems. So the idea is reduce the cost maximum. And the third is maintaining customer trust. So the idea is that the customer, and that means the end client, trust in us and trust in our process. The quality assurance determine the level of the customers satisfaction, and the idea is improve the quality and get always positive response from the customer, and getting all the trust in the process of the business. The fourth is encourage the business growth. That means that the growth require consistent quality level. That means conducting a regular QA methods into the old process of manufacturing. That means for us is not manufacturing, it's more development. So the idea is include all the standards on all the gating rules that we have to accomplish to avoid any failure. And the fifth is creating better work environment. So here, the quality assurance contributes the better work environment, because reduce the risk and assurance that the workers and the process can be worked together and in the best condition for the production environment. So talking about the bulbs, the light bulbs, have a question. So do you know how many testers does it take to change a light bulb? So the answer is none. The testers do not fix problems, they just find them. So with this little joke, that means that the testers is their focus is only try to find a bug, but they support it over a big process. So the idea with this process is supported over the same software development life cycle. So in this case, we want to see what's mean the shift left testing. So for that, we have to do another question. Where is a bug more expensive? So regarding with this, we have to say that the testing process is a vital element in the software development life cycle, because the testing process allows to release an end product with the minimum bugs. We can try that's 0 bugs, but you know that's in this industry is literally impossible, because there are many scenarios that's maybe you are not covered all the time. So the idea is reduce the bugs and try to getting reliable software. So supporting the software life cycle development, we have requirements, design, code, test as another stage here, the acceptance, productions, and maintenance. So the idea is that using the shift left, we want to reduce the possible failures or errors or bugs at the end of the process. However, the traditional testings, first of all, do the code, and at the end, do the test. So I know that the testing is not a good or more than is a tedious process, but always do a test allows reduce the possible failure in the future. The traditional model over the testing is more reflecting as this graph. You can see at the beginning we haven't test or minimal tests, and all the testing and support is at the right side when we are releasing, we are trying to releasing the final product. So in this case, we are overloading the testing, and maybe we are doing only the minimal test that we consider that's enough to accomplish the acceptance criteria. So the shift left model is a different, and this model we are trying to execute the most or maximum testing into the first of all stage. So the idea is that you execute testing doesn't mean that you have to create some code. The idea is you have to validate, for example, the requirements, you have to validate the acceptance criteria, you have to validate the user story, because you have to understood very well everything that you have to coding. So in that case, you have to support it over the design on everything that you can use in the future. That's maybe you can try to reflect what is the possible code that you have to implement. And after the process, you have to execute the development. And in this case, we have to execute the testings. But using the testing here as a stage, that means that we have to implement the unit testings and component testings and other testing that we need to increase the code coverage that we have over the solution. So at the end, we have a final support stage. And in this stage, we haven't a little more testing things, but you can add some healthy checks or other things that you can help to regarding what is the healthy from the system. That's as a part of the maybe testing that you can do it. So regarding with the first question that I did at the beginning, so a research for Phoneme Institute in 2017 found that if a defect is found at the beginning of the coding process, for example, we can get an amount over at 80 US dollars. But if we pass this defect and that defect is found in productions, we can get it around the 100 times of that the begins cost. So the idea, if you see, when you are advancing forward for the other stage, the cost to find an error is increased. So the idea is, with the shift left, we are trying to reduce this cost, trying to get in the error as soon as possible in the software lifecycle stage. Okay, so that's the main idea over the shift left. What is the benefits in this case for the shift left? The first one is early detection. That means find bugs early, as soon as possible, and don't get it that error become a problem in production. The next one is cost saving. That's mean that's not only in dollars. That's mean saving also time or resource that's can be quickly used up. So the shift left testing helps to reduce the problem and save the money. That's the thing that we need. The other is reliable testing. So it's increased the reliability over the testing procedures. Other benefits is teams work makes a dream work. So the idea here is sensibilize of the developers that they needs to do tests over the thing that you have to do, and don't let that test at the end, because that could be creating a bottleneck at the end of the process. The other benefits is the fast delivery, because you can include that kind of test over your continuous integration pipeline, for example, and you can add in more testing in your process. The end is a development pipeline. So the idea is you can include any, I'm sorry, the fast delivery is more regarding with the you can create faster and create with it errors. And the development pipeline is regarding with the you can include that kind of tests into the continuous integration process. So the idea with this, if you can do this, you are all the time testing your whole platform and to be sure that the whole process is working fine for you. So what is the steps to implement the shift left? The first step is coding standards. So the idea with the coding standards is that all developers has to be into the same page. Not only an error is a bug, a bad standards or bad use could be an error in the future. So the idea is, if you have the same standards and you using the same methodology, you can allow a very easy maintenance, because in the future you can understand that the other developer does, and you don't need to ask him to the other developer what is that method does. So the idea with the Kotlin standards is try to create the same code, doesn't matter who does. So how we can do that? So the idea is we can implement clean code techniques, refactor techniques, solid principle, and everything related with the code could be maintainable and readable. And the second step is implement testing, mainly in the early stage of development. So the idea with this is try to use tools, for example, static code analytics, for example, the linterns. That was the mainly tools that you can use inside of your coding environment. So the idea with this is try to adopt many linters or many static code validators, or everything that you can help that's you have the same standard and you using the best practice of the market. And the third is embrace the test automation. With this means that you are thinking that as part of the process of development process is include the testing as the same part of the delivery that you have to release, because the testing as part of the code. If you don't think that the testing is part of the code, you are releasing and a half code really, because when you are thinking the automation process as part of the code, you are assuring the quality of the product, because every time that the unit testing runs, you are totally sure that the quality for the product is working fine. So that's the idea with this thinking, that you are using that kind of tools and try to using that kind of standards, and using and thinking do some automation testing as part of your code. You are thinking in the quality assurance. Okay. Regarding with that, I have this image. So I don't always test my code, but when I do it in production. So this is a little joke, but so the idea is many of those companies are doing this. For example, I know that sometimes Netflix do this kind of operation, because there are a lot of tests that they have to do every time that they release a new version. So they are using, for example, some specific techniques calling the monkey cows. That is a specific testing environment that you really do that kind of test over production environment. But in the normal projects, the idea is, please don't do that. Don't test in production. Try to test over mainly in your local environment with your code only. After that, in the custom pipeline, running over on a testing environment, making especially for that other kind of special process as a performance testing or something like that. For example, you can do it in a different environment, like at a staging, for example. Other acceptance tests could do in a different environment, like UAT environment, only for acceptance criteria validation by the customer. So the idea with this is try to do the in the early stage the testing things. Okay. Well, continue with the testing. We need to understand a little bit more what kind of tests we have. So before that, we need to understand if we need to automate or not automate. So what means automate testing? So the idea with the automation testing is the process to testing software and ensure that the strict requirements are accomplished. And this process needs to be repeated and could you do many times and retrieve the same answer every time that you are doing the same test. That is the same expected value you are receiving, that expected value, and compare that result with the expected value, and you are thinking that it's good, that if all that values are equal. So that's the idea with the automated testing, that you can repeat that kind of process and you are getting that the same results. So essentially it is a special double check that you have to do because you are expecting a value and you are executing the process and you are doing that comparison over that kind of results that you are expected. What kind of tests which test cases to automate? So the idea is, first of all, the critical business process. So everything related with the critical business, you need to automate, because if you don't do that, you can do it manually, but maybe sometimes this kind of process could be longer and you need to repeat it many times because it's critical. So the idea is you must be sure that this process is working fine every time. The other kind of process that we can do is the most commonly business process. So the idea is you need to do these operations with the commands because it's repeated every time and maybe is reused at the large of the system. So the idea is if you are totally sure that this kind of common process is working fine, you can reduce the bugs that you can find in the future. The other is the test cases that consuming amount time or is tedious to do, because sometimes when you do this kind of process and you have to do this validation manually, you are avoid to do that because that is very difficult to do this kind of test. So the idea is if you have that kind of process, you can do an automation testing for that, and for the next time that you need to test, just only run the automation test. The other thing is if you have some cases that you have to repeat, that's better that you automate. Well, it's more related with the human error, because sometimes we have a special cases that maybe needs different values or different kinds of information that you have to complete. So the idea with this, and human error could be injected over the test, and you can get a different results. So the idea is that if you can reduce this human intervention, you are totally sure that the process is working fine. That doesn't mean that you don't need to do manual testing and over. So the idea is more that's help that the manual testing uh, could be only applied for the specific kind of process. For example, new testings, or for example, a specific kind of process that you need to validate, and that's not possible to automate. So that kind of manual process is very important in that kind of test. The last one is the cross-browser testing. This most related. This is more related with the different kind of browser that we are using right now, because that we have different kind of browsers, and each browsers works differently inside. So the idea is you can try to test and automate that using different frameworks or libraries specific for each of those browsers. Or you can do this in a different way, maybe manually. Try only test the smoke test over each of those browsers. So regarding with the parameter, so the idea with the parameter is the parameter testing is a concept that helps the organization decide how to prioritize the different types or automate tests you can do. So as his name it is a parameter, because the shape that's maybe a group these theoric practices is in a pyramid. At the base of the pyramid, you do have the unit test. A little bit up, you have the service or integration testing. There are many other kind of testing inside. On the end, you have the UI or end-to-end unit testing. So with the pyramid, you can read it. The bottom is more isolated. That means that you have more independent testing, and at the top you have more integrated, because you need many other components related inside to do the same kind of components. For the other side, if you do a big group of unit testings, you can reduce the time to complete many testings, and you can reduce the cost. And if you are do the same testing at the end, could be slower, because that's the integration many components at the same times can takes a little more time. And regarding with the money, you can spend more money if you have some errors inside. So talking about the unit tests is the base of the pyramid. So the idea is that you have individual components or functionality to validate that's work as expected in isolated conditions. And it's important to run a number of scenarios in unit tests, and the specific test that you always don't forget here is the happy path. And remember that before that you run any other kind of test, you need to do the smoke test. That means that you have to test manually your change in your code, and after that you can run the happy path always. So the mainly scenario that's always must run is the happy path, because if the happy path doesn't run, that means that you have a big serious problem in your change or in your code, because that's only for the main scenario, everything that's works. For the secondary scenarios, could not work because you are getting some exceptions, you are getting some other validations, or you are using a different other kind of process that maybe intercept some message or something that you are doing that kind of operation. So the idea with this unit test is that you have to run minimal the happy path running well, um, and the other scenarios does not fail if you run the same kind of process. On the next level is servers integration or integration test. So the idea with this is that you run more functional testing here. So it's more related with the two components or more other components, and that is interact with a different kind of system. For example, the database or other service or other platform that you need. So the idea with this kind of test, you are using on a specific communications. So in that case, because the process must be tried to isolate it, you need to do or include a different kind of library to simulate that the response to the other systems. Because if you have that operation that you are expecting, for example, a different values, or you need to save or change the data into the database. So the idea is you need to include, for example, a database only for QA, or on a specific service only to interact with that kind of process. For example, if you are doing some performance testing, so the idea is that you have to include that kind of test or that kind of components that you can use and try to reduce the other intervention for the other systems. And the last level is regarding for the UI and end-to-end testing. So the idea here is interact directly with the whole application. So in this case, you need to validate not only the process per se. So the idea is you need to validate whole application. And that means you need to validate one specific features, you need to validate one specific behavior for the application in some scenarios. So with this kind of things, you need to validate also the user experience, because sometimes that kind of errors is not functional requirements, is more non-functional requirement that you are validating here, because the then a specific sensation, for example, for the user, you cannot measure that kind of validations. So in that case, you need to extract that non-functional requirements and validate that requirements into this kind of process. Other kind of end-to-end is more related with the you need to interact with different other services. For example, API or microservices that you are calling directly from your application. So the idea is try to get in other systems information. And this is more related with the real environment or most close environment similar to production. So in that case, the idea with this kind of testings is you have always test through your application, not use any other kind of components to test, is mostly use your mainly application to test over the whole process. So to the summary, you can see in the base, the unit test is building small testable units. So the idea is testing on a specific part of code, not at all functionality is more related with the only one function, only one class, only one method. On the second level is integration testings. So the idea is integrate and work the testing for different kind of components, in this case, that's working together. On the last level, the UI testings, more related with the end-to-end or native UI tests. For example, in this process, it's very important here the manual testing persons, because they do this kind of process frequently, and is more valuable when do you getting an error that some person can repeat that kind of process that an automated process does. Because if an automated process, the idea is you are expecting the same steps, but sometimes that depends, for example, the browser or the other kind of tools that you have to use. In this case, that's that the error can change. So the idea with this kind of process, you need to use manual testing for that. So regarding with this, the idea is the automated testing never will replace the manual testing. Okay, so the idea is that the automated testing helps to the manual testings to do better tests. Okay. Well, regarding with the scan, we have to drive the development. So the drive the development is we have two specific methodologies. The first one is TDD, is test driven development. This means write a test that fails first, and then you have to write enough code that the test pass, and after that you have to refactor to increase the quality for that code. So in this methodology, we are using a cycle called it red, green, and refactor. So the idea with this is specific steps that we have to complete to do that kind of test. On the other side, we have the BDD, this behavior driven development. So it's similar, but specific things here is that we are executing a specification. Is more related with execute a feature or a user story, complete user story in deep, not only a testing for a specific class. No, you have to test more a next scenario and use the same operation. You testing the first scenario, but at the beginning this scenario failed, so do you have to complete the code to getting that the test pass, and after that you have to improve your code, mark it as release candidate that you can pass to production. Okay, so that is the mainly difference between TDD and BDD. This is the TDD cycle, like I mentioned before. The red is started with fail, so they have to write a test that failed just only at the beginning. Then you have to execute the green. That means that you make only the enough code to pass this test. And the end is refactor. That means that you have to clean the code. Is improve the code quality in deep. You have to refactor. You have to do clean code. You have to and many other kind of operation that allow that the code could be maintenance in the future. This is the specific process that we executed for TDD. At the first, we have to add a test, then execute the test. If the test pass, we have to create a new test. If not, that means failed. So we have to make change to the code, complete the operation, then executing again the same execution test. And if failed, we have to again change the code. And if pass, we can return to add another test. So the idea with this kind of steps in TDD is more regarding with when you are start to programming using TDD. Some of the most experimented testers prefers to do TDD before to create the code, because they are totally sure that the whole exceptional or secondary flows are taken in account when you are programming that the same functionality, and you don't miss any other kind of process. But that is not a strength force to don't do that. The mainly programmers does first the code, and then the most important thing is, please don't forget to do the test. So the idea with this is you can do the code first and then complete the testings, but please don't forget to do the testing. So that's the mainly idea with this. So regarding with the TDD, we can say that TDD always start with a failure, but always end with a success. So the idea is you never have to execute a test expecting that's pass at the first. With TDD, you are thinking that's at the first time you getting a failure. Okay, so that is the expecting thing, because you are insurance the quality for your software. Okay, well, so now I hope that you are not sleeping right now. I want to do some questions. Okay, so please, I don't know, maybe I want to ask somebody here. For example, no, this is a very simple quiz, really. Totally simple here. The quality assurance helps to determine if a product meets specific requirement and specification. It's true, because QA determines the adherence of the code of the customer's specifications. So the idea with the quality assurance is to be totally sure that all requirements are accomplished with the code. Okay. So the shift left testing increases automated tests at the end-to-end software development lifecycle. At the end of the software lifecycle is false. The idea that shift left is promote the testing process at the beginning of the software lifecycle, not at the end. The automation testing allowed finding bugs quickly in the code change. That's true. If the code change, that runs the unit test, and all tests must pass. Otherwise, you found a possible early error. So the idea, remember that you have to include this kind of testing inside the integration pipeline that you have to run. The next one is the number of the unit tests should always be as high as possible, with the aim of covering as many code units as possible also. Yeah, that's true, because the base of the pyramid testing needs enough tests to cover all unit codes. And TDD makes difficult to code implementation. That's false. The idea with the TDD is help to guarantee the quality code and all flow paths possible. Remember, try to use TDD not only to programming. You can use TDD with your code, you encode, but please don't remains or don't missing any secondary flows. So the idea is not only the happy path, the mainly float must be covered. You need to include the happy path, and you need to include the secondary failures or exception statement that you have to put inside. Okay. Question
Rainy
until
path,
here?
as it is called. Rainy paths, as they are called, the secondary ones.
Sorry, can you repeat?
No, that the other paths, not the happy path, but the other ones are usually called the rainy paths.
Yeah. The idea is mainly the happy path is always happy. So the idea, if you inject kind of errors, could be mainly in the secondary paths, because you are missing some validation, or you are missing some expected values that you have to do. So in this case, the idea is guarantee always that the quality is covering the most elements in your software. That means that you have to increase your code coverage as part of the process. Okay. Question until here? No? Great.
Oh, no.
Nope.
Excellent. You are smart guys. Very good. So right now we're gonna little bit do more on practice. So we have to use unit tests with the net. This is the practice. First of all, we have to put in common topics here. The first thing is naming convention. So the idea is that we have to understood that we have an application, inside we have modules, inside we have class, inside we have function or methods. Okay. So when we start to create the unit testings, we have to keep in mind this to allow create a best standards or use the same conventions for the all members in the teams. Okay. For example, when we want to, yes.
I'm sorry, a question. So in that case, how long can a name be for a unit test? Because you say it has to have like a lot of components in the name. So how long can the name be? Is there a limit on it?
No, there are no limits for that. But maybe that's the next slides can answer that question that you have. Okay.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, but thanks for that. So the idea with this is, when do you have a project, for example, here we have the books API project, and you want to add unit tests, you have to create a testing project and use the same application name. You can see here, we are using the same application name. Oh, I'm sorry. We are using the same application name. Okay. And we are, let me try to use this. No, I don't know how to read. Okay. Enter pointer. Yeah, here. Okay, we have, for example, we have this application, Books API. So when we want to create a testing project for this project, we have to create the same name, Books API .unit .test. That's the name that we have to use to create the unit test for this project. Okay, so that means that if you have 3 projects, you need to create 3 unit test project and Y1 each of those other projects. And this is the pattern. This is the application name dot unit test dot unit dot test. Okay. And the next one is the unit test files naming convention. That's more related with the files that we are using inside. So if we are using, for example, here, books API, and inside we are using books controller, we have to add here books controller test, always adding the suffix test at the end. Okay. Here they don't follow this suggestion, but the idea is if you have, for example, here these folder controllers, you need to replicate the same structure here. So here, do you need to create a folder, name it controller, and inside you have to put this books controller inside over that folder. Okay. So in this case, for example, they say every class with the public method, let's one method should have a text file created. This also means that you should refactor your files as per classes. That means that please, one class, one file. Okay, that's the idea with this. Because if you have that separations, you can to be sure that this test apply only for this kind of class. Okay, of this kind of operation, not to the same operation for different kind of classes. Okay. Other tip is make sure to write unit test case for all public APIs for each given class. That means more related with the controller, for example. That's all the public methods must be included inside of the test. And the last one is each test file should be completely isolated from other files. So the idea is if you have these operations, these testing methods only apply over this controller. Okay. If you need to interact with another class or something, so the idea is you have to use prototypes or mocks that we can see in a next class. Okay, so continue with the test classes here. So the idea is that we have, for example, the name for the namespace must be the same name, but adding unit test. And for the class, always adding suffix test in plural here, in plural also here, okay? Because you are adding many testings, okay? You are not adding just only one. So the idea is if you only have one, doesn't matter, you have to do in plural, okay? So some tips here is name your test class as per the business class name. That's the same. Okay. Each test class should be defined into separate test file as discussed above before. Each test class should have mechanisms to initialize mock or text data, as I mentioned before. And each test classes should be public. That means that all the testings classes must include the all public methods. Okay, so the idea with this operation is that you have to test the public. You cannot test the private methods. Okay, because you don't access a private method outside of the same class. Okay, the next one is related with the methods names. So in this case, we have to use this convention. Inside of the test class, we have to use this convention. First of all, the name of the class of the unit work that you are testing. Underscore, please use the underscore. The next is the name of the method of function that you want to test. Okay. Adding another underscore. The next is the a specific behavior. Okay. That's, for example, this is for invalid book ID, or you can put it something with null ID, or you can put it something like with a nullable value, something like that. And at the end, so the idea is you can add expected result. If you are expecting a failure, you have to add in failure. If you are expecting that success, you have to add in success. Or in other case, you can add a validation for, a naming for the return type that you are expecting. For example, return an exception, or return valid ID, or return something that you can use. So the idea with this is try to add readable to the same method name. Doesn't matter here the long of the name that you are typing here. You can put it as long name that you want it. That's no problem. But avoid with this maybe long names. You can put this first of all field as optional. That means that because you are testing book service, so you don't really need putting here book service inside, because you are inside of the same class. Okay, so in this case you can start it only for the method name and continue with the others parameters that you want to provide. Okay. Regarding with the kind of the internal method that you can follow here. So the idea is that you can use this pattern. It's triple A pattern. The triple A patterns means arrange, act, and assert. And the idea with this pattern is that the first thing is arrange. That means that you can prepare everything that you need before that the test runs. Okay, is the preparation for the special conditions or testing data that you need before that you run the test. Act is the section that the calling the specific method that you are testing, or the specific behavior that you are specifying when do you try to test. And the last one is assert. And here you have to include all validations for the expected values. Also, you can add in other kind of verifications inside of this kind of code, because the idea here is that you execute all the validation that you are expecting when that kind of method was executed. Okay. Talking about this, we have this kind of operations. Please, this not a special condition, but that helps a lot when you do this. Is please keep these comments to separate each step inside the code. That means you put this code arrange. So here you are including all the validation, all the variables that you maybe gonna need inside of the code, or prepare a prototype or mocking that values. So in this case, you can use a mock library that we want watching later in the next session. Here you can add the ACK. In this case, you can call this operation to get in this kind of execution for this specific method. At the end, you put it the assert section. Here, you have to validate all the verifications, all expected results, okay, that you get in at the end of the process. Okay, questions, something here? Everything is clear?
I have one question from the lack of
Yes.
knowledge. Why do you use one file for each class? What is the idea behind that?
Oh, because when you're running, for example, with these operations, you can use parallel executions. So in that case, if you have many classes in the same file, that runs sequentially. If you running each different class for each file, you can run in parallel. So that kind of execution reduce the time of the unit test. That's one of the reason that you can get it. Other reason is more like standards, because if you are mentioned, for example, the class, I don't know, book service before, but inside you have book, you have student, you have other different kind of classes inside. So what kind of tests you can binding over the same file, because in the same file you have 3 different classes, you know. This is more for coding standards at the beginning, at that kind of things. Okay, that's clear.
Yeah, but I ask because, well, if the project it starts growing up, isn't that gonna mean we're gonna have a lot of classes and make kind of hard for someone to find something there? I don't know. I think it might actually become more confusing that way. For example, I don't know. Of course, I'm talking from the lack of knowledge. But if you have, for example, related classes, wouldn't that make sense to have them together? I would say.
Well, in the process that you implement, so the idea is you have one file per one class. You can do the same file, and you can use it different classes inside. That's allowed, but the idea is more consistent if you have one file, one class, because the name of the file is related only with that class, not with the different classes inside of the same file. You know, that's more related with that kind of operation things. Maybe we can clarify that when we started with this kind of testing. Okay.
Okay, so
Well,
what I get is it is not like a mandatory thing. It's more like a recommendation, but depending on each project, that can change. Is that what I?
yeah, that's a separate that, yeah, because
Okay.
if I mentioned before, it's tips, or all of
Okay.
them are tips. Okay, it's not
Right.
mandatory. It's more something that you can um expect it, but it's a good practice really, because you are a separation of concerns of that kind of operations. But yeah, it's more really with that you need to separate that kind of process if you are separating or split a different files per class. That's more really with that. I know that, for example, in our project, we have that kind of things. We have in the same file, we have many classes inside. That is not a good practice. But the idea is, if you can separate it, just do it, because it's the same namespace. You don't need it. It's the same coding. That's only separation in a different file, but that nothing's gonna be broken. So if you do it and everything is working fine, there are no problem. You can split it. But if you split it and something is wrong, hey, please execute the rollback, because that something is not working fine. Okay. Thanks, Paulo, for asking. Okay, so the idea is we will continue with the practice. And for this, I've prepared a repository. Okay. So the idea with this, let me share my screen. I'm sorry, it was here. Okay, so I have this repository. So the idea with this repository, I will share you through the email the name of the URL for this repository. Here, do you have different kind of validations? So the idea is we want to execute these testings for all these specifics condition that we have here. Okay. So for today, I will be sent to you this, and I'm expecting that for tomorrow, we're gonna start it to implement one of those validations. But first of all, we need to understand how the code works, and after that, we're gonna do the testing. So the idea with this is very similar with that I mentioned before. All the testers, all the code, all the developers, sorry, all developers always does the code first, and after that adding the testing. So in this case, we will do that because we want to do simulation over the normal process behavior that we have. And for the other exercise, we're gonna do the one TDD process. So in that case, we want to execute the testing first, and after that, we want to execute the operations or complete the normal operation for the code. And after that, we are getting which of those paths could be better for us. Okay. So I will be sharing you this to you guys before tomorrow, and I can explain you how these things works and how we can do the testings over this. Okay. Meanwhile, please, I'll regarding that, please don't forget install the tools that we want to need. In this case, is Visual Studio IDE. We need to a GitHub extensions, or you can use GitHub Desktop. I use in GitHub Desktop. It's very simple to use it also. And yeah, you need to install Git by default inside of the process. Okay, that's all that I have to share with you guys. There are some other questions. We're gonna start tomorrow with this testings. Okay. Today was only theory, mainly things. No? Okay, thank you guys. We're gonna see you tomorrow
Julio,
with the
thank you.
next test.
Thank you, Julio.
Okay.
Thank you, Julio.
Thank you so much, Julio.
Thank you, Julio. Have a great day.
Same. Bye-bye.
Have a great
Thank you so
lunch.
much. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.